Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for attending the Accessible Social Media presentation today. We're so glad you could virtually be here. First, I'd just like to go over some quick housekeeping items for the webinar. To minimize distractions, we ask you to please keep your microphone muted for the duration of the webinar, unless it's, apologies, your turn to speak. I know in the webinar format, you can't unmute yourself, but when you are speaking, please keep background noise to a minimum. Please use the chat for questions and other important messages rather than just a water cooler, because often excessive chat notifications can become quite disruptive for many participants, especially those using a screen reader. So today's webinar will be using the built-in Zoom captions, and the slides from the webinar will be posted on accessiblelibraries.ca, and that will include any links. And as well as all the links in today's webinar will be posted in the chat throughout the presentation. So please note, it is officially working. The live stream, the webinar will be live streamed to the Accessible Libraries YouTube channel. And we will stop the live stream just before the final questions. And now we can get started. Corey?
Hi, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying a lovely spring wherever you're joining us from today. And since we are presenting and attending from all across the country, I just want to start off by taking a moment to give across Canada land acknowledgement. So our presenters today come from across this land, living and working in what we now know as Canada. We respect and affirm the inherent and treaty rights of all Indigenous peoples, and will continue to honor the commitments to self-determination and sovereignty we have made to Indigenous nations and peoples. We respectfully ask for you all to take a moment to acknowledge the lands on which you reside. Thank you for that. And now we would like to take a moment to briefly introduce ourselves. My name is Corey Wintemute, and I am the audiobook coordinator for the National Network for Equitable Library Service, or NNELS. And I would also like to acknowledge that I am presenting from the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, also known as Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Megan Selmer. I'm the Web and Usability Assistant at NNELS. I would like to acknowledge that I live on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sililic, Okanagan, and Inkalipakama people. Letitia?
Hello, everyone. My name is Letitia Famobani. I am an accessibility tester with NNELS. Simon?
My name is Simon Jager, and I am an accessibility analyst at NNELS.
Hi, my name is Kai. I'm an accessibility analyst also for NNELS.
Okay, and this collaborative project is funded by the Government of Canada, co-led by the Centre for Equitable Library Access, CELA, and the National Network for Equitable Library Service, NNELS, in partnership with eBound. The goal of this project is to create a consolidated resource center focused on education and training library staff across the country on the importance of accessibility. And now Megan is going to give us a quick overview of the topics we're going to be covering today.
Thanks, Corey. So in the next few slides, we're going to introduce and discuss why accessible social media posts and content are so important. And then we're going to move on to practical tips and guidelines for making your social media posts accessible. I'd like to take the time to note now that while this presentation is live, this section will include pre-recorded demonstrations of inaccessible and accessible social media posts, and as well as demos on how to add alt text to images in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and how to edit captions in YouTube. Also, throughout this presentation, we will have hands-on learning opportunities for everybody using Zoom polls that we hope you enjoy. I'll now hand it back to Corey.
Okay, so first off, let's talk about assistive technologies. When we use the term assistive technology, we're referring to the products, equipment, and systems that enhance reading, learning, working, and daily living for persons with disabilities. So these can include screen readers, screen magnification and enhancement software, refreshable braille displays, switch devices, augmentative and alternate communication, and speech recognition software. And this slide contains an image on the right-hand side. It is an image of a variety of assistive technologies, including but not limited to a hearing aid, smartphone, and a text-to-speech keyboard at a payphone. And now Megan is going to tell us a bit about how these assistive technologies relate to accessible social media.
So the content you post on social media needs to be accessible and understandable. So a big part of this is using inclusive design and language in your posts to prevent the exclusion of groups of people from accessing your content. And one of those groups is many social media users use assistive technologies, such as screen readers and braille displays to browse content. If you ensure the content you post is accessible for users of assistive technologies, you are well on your way to creating really accessible social media content for all. Corey?
Yeah, and so now that we know what can make your social media more accessible, let's go over a few of the reasons why that is important. So firstly, it increases the number of people your information will reach. So if your social media posts are not created with accessibility in mind, then you're unintentionally excluding some of your followers. If your social media is fully accessible, it reflects positively on your library because it shows that you're creating an inclusive environment for all of your patrons. And finally, even if your actual library is fully accessible, some patrons may never find this out as they might engage with your inaccessible social media or marketing and assume that the physical space is the same. So now I'm going to pass it over to Letitia, who is going to tell us a bit about the components of an accessible social media post.
Thank you, Kerry. So accessible social media component. What do you need to consider when creating accessible social media post? So we do have 5 elements here: alternative text, Pascal case hashtag, thoughtful use of emojis, captions for videos, and audio descriptions. Now, let's start with alternative text, what it is. So alternative text or alt text is a textual description of an image for people who can't see the image, such as the blind and deafblind. Screen reader will read the alt text of an image if it is available. So creating alt text, adding alt text to create a more inclusive social media experience and allows your post to reach more people. As we all know, some social media platforms use AI-generated alt text for images. Unfortunately, the alt text generated is often incorrect and confusing. So when you are faced with alt text character limit, prioritize the description of your image and write out any text in the image in your post. Now, let's talk about non-existent. Sorry. So now let's talk about non-existing alt text. What is the experience like for an assistive technology user when you do not add alt text to images or GIFs? So this is what may happen. Screen readers may read the file name of the image or create AI alt text that is inaccurate. They might also read nothing at all, only telling the user there is an image or graphic with no label. So consequently, people who use alt text will be excluded from accessing the full meaning of your social media post. Now, let's watch a quick example of an image without alt text.
So I thought that before getting into the demonstrations, I would quickly demonstrate the screen reader itself. Apple's devices all have a screen reader called VoiceOver that can be turned on from accessibility settings. And VoiceOver essentially allows a person to interact with whatever device it may be, a TV, a phone, or a Mac, without actually having to see it. And the way this works on a touchscreen device like this iPhone I'm recording from is with custom gestures. In the most basic form, if I touch something on the screen, VoiceOver will read what it is, whereas for a sighted person, it would actually open the thing I just touched. If I actually do want to open that thing, I double tap it. But if I don't, I can safely explore the screen by touching various parts of it or even dragging my finger around. So if I touch the tweet text here...
The following thread of posts are for demonstration purposes and will be deleted shortly. All text and hashtags are incorrect/absent on purpose.
VoiceOver will read it. I can't actually do anything with that because it's just a piece of text on the screen, but I'm about to get into the image demonstration, which will involve choosing the right tweet. So let's find that. I'm just gonna...
Biblios Accessibles Libraries. Replying to a Biblios Access. Interested in learning more about the World Wide Web? Check out this section of the library pic.twitter.com. 36 minutes ago. 1 reply. Actions available.
And now I'm going to double tap, which will open that tweet. I can do this anywhere on the screen, so it doesn't have to be precise. It'll activate the last thing that VoiceOver read out.
Twitter. Profile photo. Biblios Accessibles Libraries. Button. Image.
And
Double
now
tap
we're
to view
going
profile.
see whether this image has alt text. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. And thanks to Apple's AI, my phone is going to try and tell me what's in this image, and it's not going to do a very good job of it. Let's see this.
Landscape. Image. Displays this image full size. Books on shelves in a well-lit area. Possible text. 100 Sposabo no googly majo urs pip 33,035 km 307 Lanini. Saw. Agaox dip 34,835 k. Linhini. 4.738.5. Cifrawian SSDO is hasp 01. As RNINGI. Internet.
So I guess not a good job is relative, because it did tell me that it was books on shelves, which is great, and it eventually read the word internet, which is great. That was the point of the tweet. I had to listen through a lot of gibberish to get there, which is not great. Had this image had alt text, we'll see in one of the next demonstrations that it would have been a lot easier to get that information out of the post.
Okay, so now let's talk about alternative text, the bad. What is bad alt text? The alt text is automatically generated by AI and lacks details or context. The alt text is the alt text is too long and verbose. The alt text does not adequately and accurately describe the image. The alt text is not objective or contains bias. Now, let's watch another short video that shows us an example of bad alt text. So we just learned about bad alt text. Now, let's see a tangible example of bad alt text in this post.
accessiblelibraries.com/heading level 2 link accessible library link 20M. Shared with public graphic. Actions for this post button. A demonstration for testing bad. Interested in learning more about the World Wide Web? Check out this section of the library. Link graphic a bookshelf.
Now, you see the alt text here says a bookshelf. That's it. This is a bad alt text because the description is too short and it does not describe accurately or concisely the image. If you can see on the screen, you will realize that this post uses an image to present important information. So anyone who relies on alt text will lose the meaning of the post. Okay, now that we have learned something about non-existing alt text, bad alt text, let's talk about the alternative text to good. So what is good alt text? Images are described clearly and concisely. The alt text provides any relevant context to the image as it relates to the social media post. The alt text uses present tense and action verbs. Descriptions should be objective and free from censorship. We all know that some things may be difficult to describe, but the goal here is to give the reader all the important information in the image. Now, let's watch another short video that shows us a good example of, an example of good alt text. So let's revisit the same image with good alt text this time.
Tag may access heading level link to M. Shared action, a demonstration interested in learning more about the worldwide link graphic, a closed dash up of a cream dash colored library bookshelf that provides patrons with blue subject dividers. The image focuses on the divider for the subject left quote internet right quote, which has the Dewey Decimal Call number left quote 004.738.5 right quote, like button.
Now you can see the difference between the first alt text that says only like a bookshelf and this one. This is a more accurate and concise alt text. More importantly, this alt text includes the message that is presented on the image. So anyone who relies on alt text here will not lose the meaning of the post. Okay, so we have learned 3 things already. The bad and good alt text, the non-existing alt text. Now let's see some techniques for alt text success. Be accurate and succinct when describing images. Don't be redundant in your descriptions. Write for your audience. This is an important point. For instance, when you will describe an image intended for children, like an image from a storybook, differently than you would a Stephen King book cover. If there is text within an image, write it out. Do not censor all text, because people who use screen readers should receive equal access to the information conveyed in images. Describe the physical criteria of people in images. And finally, do not describe decorative images. We mean images that are purely aesthetic and do not convey any meaning. And if possible, avoid using decorative images in your post. Now, let's see common mistakes. We have quite a few of them here. So when describing your images, do not rely on automatically generated alt text. Do not include phrases like, this is an image graphic of, because screen reader will announce that it is a graphic before reading the description. Do not add information if it is already in the surrounding text. For example, do not use captions description as alt text. And finally, do not use alt text to add extra information not related to the image, such as keywords for marketing. So now let's see a good example of alt text. So this is an example of a good alt text, and we're gonna read it together. A cat with a butterfly sitting on the tip of its nose. The cat sits outside in the setting sun. The cat has white, long hair with gray spots. It has green eyes and a black nose. The small butterfly is blue with black wingtip. So this is a good, well-described and concise alt text. Now, in the next few slides, we are going to learn how to add alt text to images in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So we have 3 videos. Let's start with the first one, how to add alt text to images in Facebook.
Now let's add some alt text to an image in Facebook. I'll begin by creating a post. First, I'll upload an image. Then I'll add the alt text. To do this, select the Edit option located in the top left corner of the image. This opens a photo detail pop-up. Select the menu option Alternative Text. Facebook generates its own custom alt text for images. In this case, it says, maybe an image of one person, book, and indoor. Not great, so we're going to add our own custom alt text. Our alt text says, an arm is pulling a book off a library bookshelf. You cannot see the book's title, but it has a green cover. The arm has a light skin tone and a white wristwatch. The bookshelf is one in a long line of bookshelves that fade into the background. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to click Save. There you go. You've added alt text to an image in Facebook. Let's post it. You can also edit the alt text of previously posted images. To do this, click on the image and then go to the 3 dots in the right corner of the post. Then select the Change Alt Text. Now, if you have not already added alt text to this image, this menu option will be called Override Generated Alt Text. Let's change alt text. There you go. We've just edited the alt text of a previously posted image.
Okay, so next we are going to learn how to add alt text to images in Twitter.
So here we are on the browser version of Twitter, and I'm going to quickly walk you through how to add alt text to your posts. So start by clicking the tweet button on the left sidebar, and then click on the media button. And then you're just going to want to choose the image that you want to attach. From here, you just click on the Add Description button underneath the photo. And next, you're going to see a text box appear, which you can write your alt text into. It allows you to describe up to 1,000 characters, which should be more than enough for most social media images. And then from here, you just click the Save button up at the top. And now your image with alt text is ready to be posted. Another thing I should note here is that Twitter recently added a new feature which makes it very easy to tell which images contain alt text. Those that do have the word alt in the bottom corner of the image. This also makes it much more obvious if you forgot to include alt text in your own posts.
Okay, now let's all learn how to add alt text to images on Instagram.
And now here we are on the browser version of Instagram, where I can show you how to quickly include your alt text in these posts. So we're going to start by clicking the plus symbol icon at the top here to create a new post. And then we're going to select the picture that you want to post. We'll use the same one from the previous demo. And then you're just going to want to click next a couple of times to get to the page we want, which is this last one here. And then you just click this accessibility drop-down menu to the right of the picture. And then from there, a text box will appear where you can enter your alt text before posting.
So hashtags are searchable topics or categories that are added to social media posts. It can be a word or a multiple word or a phrase. Always begins with a number sign or hash symbol, and it cannot have punctuations or symbols other than the number sign at the beginning. One thing to keep in mind when you're writing hashtags is if it's multiple words, use Pascal case. Hashtags and other phrases that combine multiple words should always be written this way. Pascal case indicates the separation of words by adding a capital letter to the first letter of each word. It's very commonly known as camel case, but this is not completely correct, and we'll get to why in a moment. But when hashtags are in Pascal case, screen readers will read out each word individually as though it had a space between it. So for instance, if you have the hashtag accessible social media, the capital A, the S, and the M should all be capitalized, and this will cause the screen reader to read it as accessible social media, whereas if you wrote it with all lowercase or all uppercase, it might be spoken as something like accessible social media, which is confusing. So if you don't use Pascal case, this is the kind of thing that can happen, and it will get worse the more words you add into the hashtag. If it's particularly long, the screen reader may just give up on pronouncing it or spell it out or something. The difference between Pascal case and camel case is that camel case does not capitalize the first letter of the first word. So in accessible social media, if it were written in proper camel case, the A would not be capitalized. We prefer Pascal case because it means that every word gets a capital. So where should you add hashtags? Screen readers will read the word hashtag, or in some cases just number sign, when encountering a hashtag. This can be a little bit disruptive if there are a lot of hashtags. So if you have 3 or more hashtags in the middle of sentences, like if you're replacing words with hashtags, think about whether you could move those to the end so that it's less disruptive to screen reader users. A good example of this would be get your hashtag Braille books at your local library. A bad example of this would be get your hashtag Braille hashtag books at your hashtag local library. That's just too many hashtags to read when trying to read the tweet all at once. So we have a couple of demos that incorporate these examples. First, we're going to show a tweet that does many things incorrectly and see how bad it could be.
Looking for hashtag ebooks and hashtag audiobooks? Visit our hashtag digital resources page. Hashtag that hashtags hashtag WEMADETHPOSTONPURPOSETOPROVE hashtag HANDBREADCICKENTENTERTEXAST hashtag world's longest hashtag.
So a lot of things went wrong there. There were some hashtags in the middle of sentences, which is maybe bordering on a little bit disruptive. There were also many mispronounced hashtags. Digital resources was mispronounced as digital resources. World's longest hashtag was pronounced as world's longest hashtag, which is a really good example of what can happen when you mash words together. The TH is obviously meant to be part of 2 different words, but the screen reader doesn't know that. And the other 2 hashtags were just spelled out. And for those who can visually see them, you may have noticed that VoiceOver, the screen reader, actually gave up halfway through spelling them out because they were just so long. It didn't know what to do with them, and it didn't want to keep spelling out those words because it just takes too long. So now let's hear this tweet with all of these issues fixed.
Looking for ebooks and audiobooks? Visit our digital resources page. Hashtag good hashtags hashtag audiobooks hashtag ebooks hashtag digital resources hashtag we made this post to prove a point hashtag hand-breaded chicken tender Texas toast sandwich hashtag world's longest hashtag.
As a side note, hand-breaded chicken tender Texas toast sandwich is a real hashtag that was apparently used. We looked up some of the longest hashtags. Okay, so using emoji in your social media posts. Each emoji has a text description which is read out loud by screen readers as part of whatever you may be reading. For instance, one of the most infamous emojis is described as a face with tears of joy. You can use a site called emojipedia.org to look up the emoji meanings. It'll have descriptions of the emoji, but also just the short name that a screen reader would call it, which is pretty useful. One thing to consider is that using too many emojis in a row can become confusing and verbose for a screen reader user since all of them are read out. So using a few emojis, though, can be fun or inclusive. For instance, you can use emojis to describe the title of a book. So I have a few demos of this. One of the most common things I've seen on social media, though not for a while, is people using clapping hands emojis in place of spaces between words. So every word has a clapping hands emoji between it. This is a really good example, though extreme, of how emojis can be really verbose with a screen reader. Let's hear what that could sound like.
Please clapping hands, make clapping hands, your clapping hands, social clapping hands, media clapping hands, posts clapping hands, accessible clapping hands, to clapping hands, sparkles, everyone sparkles. 3 clapping hands.
So kind of like hashtags, they're mixed in with the text and read out loud, and that can just become extremely frustrating to read through. It's a really good idea when you're using emojis to figure out if they're decorative or whether they actually add to the meaning in that particular place, and much like hashtags, move them to the end if necessary. Let's hear what this could sound like if these things are considered.
Clapping hands. Please make your social media posts accessible to everyone. Clapping hands.
Another odd trend I've noticed is people occasionally using emojis to represent letters. So they'll spell out words, but instead of a letter, they'll put an emoji that looks a little bit like that letter. This can be problematic because, in addition to being verbose, some screen reader users might not understand what the emoji looks like or how it compares to what the letter looks like. So they may not be able to understand what the post says at all. Let's have a look at this. This demo is going to be first the tweet being read out in full, which just sounds completely nonsensical, but then me going through the post character by character using voiceover, which makes it a little bit more intelligible, though still reasonably confusing.
D circle mark, GM top hat, N and copyright sign, a Latin cross, K identification sign. Cap D, circle mark, G, space. Cap M, top hat, N. Space, ampersand, space, copyright sign, A, Latin cross, space, cap K, identification sign.
So that translates to Dogman and Cat Kid. Now let's have some fun demos. A couple of book titles.
5 monkey, up down arrow, bed.
5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. And one more.
Smiling face with glasses, high voltage sign, magic wand, plus symbol, door, face with a zipper mouth.
The interesting thing about that is when we were originally looking it up, we intended for the high voltage sign to be a lightning bolt, which makes a lot more sense in the context of what it is, which is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It's a good example of why it's important to look up the text description of emojis before using them. And one last demo, using emoji in a sentence to replace words.
The girl's head went to the stack of books, classical building, to renew her video game controller, and also check mark, out of fire, book.
So the sentence obviously sounds absurd if taken literally the way VoiceOver reads it, but that's, I think screen reader users are capable of translating if necessary. So what that roughly translates to, the girl went to the library to renew her video game and check out a hot new title.
So what are captions? Captions are a text version of the audio users needs to understand the content. It includes both speech, so characters, dialogue, narration, and non-speech such as birds chirping. Media with audio must have captions. Captions mean that both people who need them, such as those who are deaf or hard of hearing, and people in public spaces who don't have headphones can both understand the content. AI-generated captions are often grammatically incorrect and have difficulty picking up different accents and speedy talkers. We understand that captions can be difficult and time-consuming to create, but we suggest hiring a stenographer if you can, and also editing AI-generated captions like in YouTube before posting any media with audio. So now let's look at what bad captions will look like.
Level 1, 1, item 1, 1 of 3. Level 2, A, item 1A. B, item 1B. Level 1, 2, item 2. Level 2, A, item 2A. B, item 2B. Level 1, 3, item 3. Level 0, heading level 1. Level Table 1, uniform table, new cell, bat heading with direct formatting in. Table, subheading in table, row 2 of 2, last cell in table. Quick keys on. Heading 2 good. Heading level 2 with styles. Heading 1 bold and italics vs strong and emphasis. Heading 2 good. Heading level 2 with styles. Heading 1 good. Heading level 1 with styles.
So as you can see, there's a lot of things wrong with this one. It missed a lot of words. The timing was off, and it misspelled a lot of things. And the clip that you heard was synthesized speech, which was directly piped through using a sound card. So it should provide really clear audio, but as you could see, it still struggled. So now let's take a look at what good captions will look like.
Close Harvey and Extraordinary for now and move on to a different kind of book. So reopening my Thorium window, let's have a look. I have this book here. It's a picture book called Mimanda Esi Gekendama, or This Is How I Know from Groundwood Books. It's a dual language picture book with well thought out image descriptions built into each page, in addition to an enhanced audio read aloud recorded by native Anishinaabe speakers. Let's listen to a snippet. I'm going to open this, and it goes to the first page. I'm pressing the read aloud, invokes the audio. I think I actually need to go back a page. Here we go.
Manish Anagi Kandama Nabing. How do I know summer is here?
Pete o skabid mang, winondago zid zaga iganing. Jayawish kozid, nimki dikman gewe gazad, megwe wigwas nibishing. When Loon opens her red eyes to call across the water, and green Luna moth hides among birch leaves.
I'm going to stop that there. I just love this book. The illustrations are sweet, and the enhanced audio combined with word-by-word highlighting makes this a unique and captivating reading experience.
All right, so as you're able to see, the grammar and spelling is correct for both languages. It also describes a lot of the sound effects, so the canoe rowing and the loon call, and the captions match up really well with the audio. So these are things to definitely keep in mind and look for with good captions. So how do we add and edit captions in YouTube? Well, now look at a short video to walk you through that.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly walk you through how to manually edit your captions on YouTube. So if any of you have ever uploaded a video to YouTube, you're probably familiar with this YouTube Studio page. And the page we're looking for specifically is the subtitles page, which can be found in this menu on the left-hand side of the screen. So when you click on that, it's going to bring up a list of all the videos that you've published to your page. If you pull down the drop-down menu that's on that, it's going to show you any automatically generated or uploaded subtitles that that video might have. So on the right-hand screen or right-hand side of the screen, there's this blue edit button. So if we click on that, it's going to pull up this new window. And on this screen, it shows the video on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side, we have editable text along with the timestamps for the video. So you can click on any of these and go in and change any mistakes if you see them. And then underneath that, we have this little progress bar if you wanted to scroll through the video. And as you can see, it follows the subtitles as you go along. And another thing I wanted to point out here too is if you hit this little cog wheel underneath the video for the settings, you can adjust the speed. So sometimes it's nice to bump it up to 1.5 or 2 times especially if it's just people talking slowly, as it'll speed up your editing process. Um, and then also from here, you can, if you click this little 3 dot options menu above the text, you can either download the subtitles, which is handy if you wanted to do your subtitle editing within YouTube, and then if the video is going to live elsewhere, you can still use that subtitle anywhere else. And you can also upload your own subtitle file. So if you've generated it in another transcription service or something like that, you can just throw it in here, and then it'll come up just the same way on the left hand side here with the text, so you can go in and edit it after the fact. So that's basically how to use the YouTube caption editor. It's always a good idea to go in and manually do it, as the YouTube generated ones often have a fair amount of mistakes. One that comes to mind is our organization Nels often will come up as various things such as snails or nails, or it's very rare that it gets proper names correct. So things like that are important to go in and sort of review for. And then once you're done with that, you can just hit the publish button, and your edited subtitles are ready to go.
So audio descriptions provide content to persons who are blind or have low vision, and it describes any visual information needed to understand the content, including any text displayed in the video. It's also known as described video or video descriptions. So for example, this is something you might hear when you have the audio descriptive track turned on. A man sits at a desk slowly flipping through a file. He stops on a page with a crime scene image. The picture is of a closed painted brown door with the number 4A above a small circular peephole. Yellow police tape stretches across the doorway that says, "Crime scene, do not cross." So there is a difference between audio descriptions that you add after and integrated audio descriptions. So integrated descriptions are descriptions that use sound and dialogue to convey everything that's happening in the video. So when a blind or low vision viewer watches the video, they can follow along without any extra audio track. And so we kind of consider this as putting in accessibility from the start and making your videos born accessible, so to speak. With descriptions that have been added afterwards, it usually comes in the form of an audio track that goes on top of the video and inserts inserts audio descriptions between the dialogue. So a really good tool that you can use to provide audio descriptions on YouTube videos is called UDescribe. And it's a really easy way for you to make videos that you put on YouTube very accessible by providing an audio descriptive track. They also have some really great resources. One of them is a playlist of videos to help you get started in making good audio descriptions. So now let's look at a video that doesn't have audio descriptions.
My visit to Toronto Public Library, a social story for everyone. Today I'm visiting my library. Things are a little different now because of the pandemic, but you can still use the library safely in person and online at home. The library is free to use and I am always welcome at the library. There are many libraries to choose from in my city, Toronto.
Okay, so as you're able to tell, we're able to understand what what is said in the video, but all the visual effects with like the person wearing the mask and at the library, all that is completely missed, and that is really important information. So now let's look at the same video, but with audio description.
My visit to Toronto Public Library, a social story for everyone.
A boy sitting at a table in the library in front of an open book. He is wearing a face mask and looking at the camera.
Today I'm visiting my library.
A boy wearing a face mask walking through the security gate at the library.
Things are a little different now because of the pandemic, but you can still use the library safely in person and online at home.
A girl wearing a face mask holding a book and looking at the camera.
The library is free to use and I am always welcome at the library.
An older boy and younger girl wearing face masks sitting on the carpet in the children's area of the library. They are looking at an open book in their laps, and the boy is pointing to something in the book. There is a walker behind him.
There are many libraries to choose from in my city, Toronto.
An illustrated map of the city of Toronto showing major landmarks, roads, and Lake Ontario.
Yeah, so as you can tell, there's audio description, which describes all the important things that are shown in this video. What's really great is that it inserts all these descriptions between the gaps of dialogue and speech, which I'll definitely talk about a little bit more. However, audio description is a changing landscape, and there's always improvements and the ways to enhance the video. And I think in this one, they definitely did a really great job. I would actually say personally, as a blind user of audio description, I would probably add a little bit more detail to fill out a little bit more of that silence. I think that that's pretty much my big thing personally, but yeah, it's an excellent demo, an excellent description as well. Okay, so techniques for audio description. Try to describe important visual elements of the scene, so information that cannot be understood solely through dialogue and sound effects can be understood by the blind or low vision viewer. So costumes, expressions, actions, these all need to be described. Always look at the video context to determine what is important to describe. So just like in image descriptions, context is, I think, one of the key ways of figuring out what's important to describe and what's not, because in audio description especially, you don't have as much time to be able to share all the information, so you have to prioritize. Insert short and concise descriptions between dialogue, and I think you'll see with upcoming videos, but also I'm sure you're aware that some videos are much more fast-paced, like trailers, where there really isn't much time. So make sure the volume of the audio description track is audible on top of the video. And this is more specific to UDescribe, since it allows anyone with a phone or a computer and microphone to be able to add audio descriptions. Depending on the audio settings, the audio track may be quieter than the video. With the professionally produced version, this usually isn't a concern because you'll have an audio engineer who will make sure that everything is equalized. Ensure that descriptions do not overlap with the video dialogue. So we've already talked a lot about this. And if expressions actions, costumes, etc., cannot all be conveyed within audio gaps, use extended description. And this is a feature that's specific to YouDescribe, where it will pause the video, or you're allowed to pause the video to be able to insert a longer description if there are some important elements that still can't be described within those gaps. Aim to be objective, so only describing what you see in the video. Describe the physical characteristics of people in the video. So these last 2 points pretty much are the same as describing alt text in terms of guidelines, best practices, and whatnot. So common audio description mistakes. So here's some things to keep in mind not to do. Do not let audio descriptions overlap the video dialogue. Do not censor. Do not describe the meaning behind the video or screen. Only describe what is occurring on screen. Do not reveal key information, so names of characters or actions, before they are shared with everyone else on screen. So no spoilers, pretty much, because that's just not very nice to the viewer to be able to kind of ruin that moment that everyone, you know, is expecting in the right time. So I'm going to pass it back to Megan so we can do a live example of bad descriptions.
Behold the North American
person standing by a
college
fountain.
student in his
The person
natural
is doing
habitat,
something on a phone. A book
completely
flies at the
unaware
person
of
and
the
they look out at the
approaching
screen at
predator.
the audience.
And soon he becomes yet another victim of the dreaded research paper. And to think, all this could have been avoided. But how?
Then a
Like
building
many
shows up.
questions, the answer can be found in the library.
And a building shows up in the frame.
libraries
The
have
building
more
is
to
square
offer
with
than
weird
simply a
crisscross
mountain of
windows.
books and
As the
resources.
video goes on,
They
stuff
also
bursts out of
house
the
an
door
elite
like books.
class of super
The building then
intelligent, highly
disappears,
trained
and there is another
specialists who are
person
there
dressed
solely
in
to
all
help
in
you.
black with a weapon.
They're
The
called
person dressed in black
librarians.
helps people do stuff like cross the
Librarians
street.
act like guides, leading you to
Then
the
a book
right
is
information,
shown,
refining the
helped by a
topic, and helping
person
you
with a
find
headphone
just what you
band.
need. And with library resources on the web, librarians can help you without even stepping foot in a
Person
library.
with the headband waves, then a bunch of bookshelves appear and a book floats out from one of the bookshelves. Whew. There we go.
Awesome. So one of the obvious things, of course, is talking over the audio. You know, that was quite apparent in the demo. And she doesn't describe the physical characteristics of the person. There was also action that was described before it happened in the video. The description sometimes was vague and unclear, and the text on the screen wasn't read out as well. So like book covers. And again, this was a very fast-paced video, so you would have to prioritize all the important information. But there were definitely a few little gaps you could insert something. And one of the techniques that some audio companies have used is to speed up the description that they've recorded, compress it a little bit so that it fits in between those gaps a little bit more nicely.
Okay, so I'm just going to sort of briefly go over a couple more other social media considerations that they can sort of apply to any platform here. So the first one I wanted to mention is color and contrast. So you're going to want to avoid using only color to convey information in any of your posts, because this means persons who are colorblind may not be able to understand the information. So you're going to want to use a high color contrast between your text and background. Persons with low vision may not be able to understand your content if you use colors with low contrast. And a good example of this would be like gray text on a light blue background, for instance. And font choice is important too. So it's recommended that you use easily readable fonts, and sans serif fonts like Arial, Verdana, Helvetica, and Calibri are considered accessible choices. Oh, sorry. And so when you post content, try not to share anything that flashes 3 or more times in 1 second period, as this has been known to cause seizures in some people. And when possible, add a transcript for your video and audio media. This will be especially helpful if you need to add a longer detailed audio description. And something like this can also be useful for someone, say, who's deaf and blind, who may not be able to access the descriptions through audio. And I'm going to pass it back over to Megan to tell us about using social media managers.
Thanks, Corey. Okay, so some of you may use social media management software to manage and schedule how you post to social media. So while we're not promoting any of them, we would suggest you see if they're committed to being accessible and or if they provide guidelines for creating accessible social media posts. So here are 2 examples. Like Hootsuite is committed to following the standards outlined in the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, the AODA. And Hootsuite also provides really comprehensive guidelines and resources and help sections for creating accessible social media posts, which is a great resource. Additionally, Sprout Social, they say that they're committed to providing an accessibility platform that follows the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.0 level AA. So like whatever social media software or platform you use, just look at their website, see if they're accessible. And if you want to start creating, and we hope you do, accessible social media posts, see if they have any resources to help you do the things that we talk about in this webinar. Corey?
Yeah, and so this is, we sort of touched on this a little bit before, but there are some types of social media posts, and specifically ones that are very trendy these days that are sort of difficult to make fully accessible, and in some cases not really accessible at all. And the big one is the Instagram stories and reels. You can, they do have a lot of accessibility features. You can include captions, but like we mentioned before, it doesn't really get picked up by screen readers, and there's no sort of transcript with them as well. So it's good for people who are deaf, but it's not maybe fully accessible. And a way you can sort of work around this with the way it's currently set up is you can sort of add an image description or a caption or something like that directly into the caption. And what I mean by that is we went over how to add a description to an actual photograph where Instagram has the actual space to put it in and the screen reader will pick that up. Doesn't have that for the reels and the stories. So you'd have to include that as sort of a separate text in the caption if you wanted it to work in that way. And for all these same reasons, TikTok is basically not super accessible as well, because it's basically just an entire app dedicated to those same type of story and reel video type content. So something to keep in mind when you're thinking about posts and trying to have them reach as many people as possible. So.
Okay, so in summary, to create a fully accessible social media post, you need to include alternative text if you are posting an image or GIF. Use Pascal case hashtags preferably at the end of your social media posts. Limit the number of emojis you use or use them thoughtfully. Include captions in any media with audio, and add audio descriptions to videos if there's undescribed visual information users need to understand the content. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending this webinar. We will now move on to final questions.